Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to our best chess games of all time series. So in this series we're following the best of the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history, and today I wanted to show really an immortal game back from 2018 between Magnus Carlsen and David Navara. And this game is really spectacular because here you witness a beautiful queen sacrifice that leads into a beautiful fortress position, and the fortress position is really a static, really compact position where all of your pieces are glued together, where all of your pieces are protecting each other, so there is a certain dependency between your pieces, and this game shows really the power of the fortress, and the idea to sacrifice the queen just in order to get this kind of a position is really brilliant. So be prepared. This was again a beautiful chess game from another dimension. So let's see now the game. Magnus Carlsen here with the white pieces open with the move d4. We have knight to f6 by David Navara, knight to f3, d5, and after move c4 we have the queen's gambit. We have e6, the queen's gambit declined, and now Magnus goes into the traditional variation with the move bishop to g5, already keeping the tension here. The knight is attacked, the knight is controlling the center of the board on d5, so it's really already a dynamic position. So here we have bishop to b4, sort of a counter attack here by Navara, which is now the so-called Vienna variation. We have now knight to c3 and now h6 here by David Navara. And here Magnus has already to make a decision, because if you play now this kind of idea with bishop to h4, then it could be very dangerous already with the move d takes c4. And now if you want to maybe recapture the pawn on c4 by playing the move e3, then you get b5 and black can hang on to this extra pawn. I'm not saying this is losing for white, but it's really uncomfortable to play, because you have to break now the position with the move a4, but still a4 can be met with c6. Okay, this is of course a double pawn structure on the c file, but I think with this pawn majority, with this 4 versus 2 situation on the queen side, black could have really a good game here, although white has here a dominant position in the center of the board. But in my opinion, this is not something that white wants to get out of this opening. So that's why Magnus takes bishop to f6. He gives up now his bishop pair in an early stage of the game. We have queen to f6 and now e3, because it gave him now an extra tempo. The queen was attacked, of course. The knight on f6 was taken, and he can play now the move e3. And if now d takes c4 happens, of course, the bishop comes out with a beautiful tempo. So kingside castling, rook to c1. We have now d takes c4, bishop to c4, and now c5. And this is the way to go for black, I think, because black has the bishop pair. Black has to open out the position, and black doesn't want to tolerate this 2 versus 1 situation here in the center of the board. So the only advantage I think that white is here in the position is this pawn majority in the center of the board. So that's why Navara is breaking the position immediately with the move c5. And also what he's trying to do is to play rook to d8. Rook to d8 is of course very dangerous. Then of course the queen is under fire on d1. So it's really also solid opening line here that Navara played so far. And the only disadvantage I think that I see for black in this position is of course this bad bishop on c8. The bishop is a little bit paralyzed by its own pawn structure. So in order to get it in some kind of a good shape, you have to play b6, maybe then bishop to b7, maybe attacking for the knight on f3. So here Magnus takes. The release is simply the pressure in the center of the board, hopes that Navara takes maybe with the bishop, and now at least he doesn't have any more this annoying pin against the knight on c3. But Navara played, I think, a beautiful choice. He played now knight to d7. He's saying, I will stay active with my bishop and I will recapture your pawn with the knight. So the knight will come then on c5, and then maybe it can attack also maybe the weak square here on d3. So in the continuation we have now kingside castling by Magnus. We have now knight to c5, and look at this. Now Navara is preparing ideas of rook to d8, b6, bishop to b7, knight on d3, bishop takes c3. Queen is also attacking the c3. The knight is a little bit loose on f3. So many attacking opportunities are here. So it's really already a wild open position. So Magnus goes for knight to b5. He's attacking now the weak c7 square, the weak d6 square. He also wants to reroute the knight here on d4, where it could have really better activity. But of course we can also notice that a little bit the pawn on b2 is now endangered. But so far queen takes b2 is not working, because you get rook to b1 and your bishop gets trapped. So far it's not working, but maybe later this pawn could be annoying. So in the continuation we have now a6 by Navara, attacking now the knight on b5, knight to d4 played by Magnus Carlsen, and now we have b5. And look at this, already a wild position. There is also this idea to play maybe e5 to attack the knight in the center of the board. But the problem, I think, about this line for black is that now notice a huge difference. Pay good attention now. This is now really the critical moment of the game. If you play e5 instead of b5, then of course here we have knight to c2. Your bishop is hanging. Now after rook to d8, that could be possible. White has still the opportunity to go with the queen on e2. So after move b5, you notice that the bishop comes on e2, and this bishop takes a natural square for the queen. That's now, I think, the main issue. So you see now, white is keeping the position compact. Now you have to move the bishop, and there is also the threat of the move b4. Look at this, with bishop to a5, b4. Okay, there is maybe this kind of a line, b5, bishop to f7. First we give up the bishop, but also we can take out now this pawn in the center of the board with f4, and we're supporting the knight, and later we'll take out the knight on c5 or the bishop on a5. This would be the line if you play e5 first instead of b5. But now Navara plays, I think, a good choice. He plays b5, takes out now the natural score for the queen. The queen would left, of course, to come on e2, and now he plays e5. The knight has to move, and now he plays rook to d8. Notice the queen is trapped. Really wild stuff, and Magnus, I think, wanted to get this position, because here Magnus decided to sacrifice the queen for the rook and for the minor piece. Really beautiful tactical shot now in the center of the board. Okay, maybe this is playable, maybe this is not playable, but it's really a wild choice here by Magnus Carlsen. I think he wanted to get this, and he's getting now really decent activity with his pieces. Rook to d1, of course, here played by Navara. We have rook from f to d1. Now the knight is hanging here on c5. Here we have a counter attack by Navara, a5, attacking the knight on b4. Knight to d5, knight to d5, attacking the knight on the queen on f6, and the knight is very powerful here in the center of the board. Navara has now to protect the knight here on c5, and Magnus plays a beautiful move, knight to e5. If of course you take the knight on e5, then of course your knight on c5 is hanging. So Magnus has now a pawn and the knight and a rook for the queen, which is, I think, a decent compensation, because it's not only that you gained this material for the queen. I think there is also the beauty of the piece activity that Magnus Carlsen get here. Look at this, the knights are centralized, the rooks are on the most active files, this bishop is still active here on both of these diagonals. It can be also rerouted to f3. First of all, we have to notice also that the pawn on b5 is hanging. So I think it's I think a decent compensation for the lost queen. So okay, you have to struggle, you have to battle, but it's really a beautiful middle game now that we see. So here in the continuation, bishop to b7 by Navara, hitting the knight. We have bishop to f3, competing now on this long diagonal. Rook to c8. We have knight to g4 by Magnus Carlsen. There are some discoveries that are possible to go with your knight somewhere, but it's not a dangerous discovered attack. The queen would just move and you didn't gain anything. So that's why Magnus tried to search new opportunities for the knight. Knight to g4, queen to f8, and now h4. We have knight to d7 by David Navara. Rook takes c8. You cannot, of course, take here with the queen on c8, because you get the fork on e7. So that's why you have to play bishop to c8. And now Magnus plays a solid move, a3, and he's already preparing some kind of a fortress, because he wants to now play b4. After a takes b4, a takes b4, the knight is controlling the b4, the bishop is controlling the knight, the bishop is controlling the rook, and the rook is controlling the knight. So it's already sort of a compact position, sort of a position where all of the pieces are glued together, where they're protecting each other. It's really a beautiful dependency position. So it's, as I said, already a preparation to go into the fortress position. So here in the continuation, Navara plays aggressively with the move h5, knight to h2, g6, and now bishop to e2 here by Navara, and now queen to knight to e5 here by David Navara. And first I thought, okay, why did he give up his pawn on b5? Why is he's not protecting his pawn? Actually, the problem is also here for Magnus Carlsen that he could get destroyed maybe by this piece activity, by the knight, by the bishop, if the queen somehow gets into the game. Maybe if you even lose the pawn on h4, maybe black can activate the pieces and create some checkmate patterns against you here. So it's really a wild position. I'm not sure how many of us would even handle this position. This is really a position that's stretched all over the board. There is of course a tension on the queen side because you could lose the pawn, but there is also the tension on the king side. There are some tactical possibilities. So for instance, if you play here queen to c5 instead of this move knight to e5, if you're trying to protect your pawn, then knight to f3 will happen. Look at this, knight to b6, maybe we're trading off more pieces. Here b4 would be of course the normal idea, queen to d6, knight to b6. Okay, this is maybe a playable position for white, but notice also that these two pawns are really weak. What you don't want to get here in this particular position for white, you don't want to lose the b pawn. If you lose the b pawn and allow here black to get a passer on the b file, then I think you could be losing. So it's really risky, but still with rook to d4, I think again white could have this beautiful fortress position. But okay, here after move bishop to e2, knight to e5 was played. Here Navara simply takes now the pawn on b5, but Navara had a different idea in mind, which is I think also a solid choice. He plays bishop to b7, attacks the knight has to retreat, queen to e7, and now again Magnus is preparing this fortress position, rook to d4, and he's trying to play the move b4 and keeping everything good together. So here Navara plays queen to e6, knight to f1, we have queen to b3, attacking now the pawn on b2, rook to d2, and now with the move knight to c4, Navara is activating the knight. Here rook to d7 was played by Magnus. We have knight to b2. See, Navara took now a very important pawn. As we said, if Navara manages to somehow get an extra pawn here on the queen side, if he manages to create a passer on the a file now, in the previous position it was possible maybe on the b file, but now if he creates a passer on the a file, this could be suddenly losing game for white. So this is really wild position. So Magnus goes rook to b7, we have now queen takes c3, and now Magnus goes for this pawn. We have bishop to e8, attacking the pawn on f7, we have king to f8, bishop to f7, and now we have here queen to c6, attacking now the rook. If you for instance play here queen to a3, then I think bishop to g6, look at this, bishop to h5 could happen. Black would lose I think too much materials here, so that's why Navara didn't go for this line. He played now queen to c6, attacking the rook. We have a rook takes b2, and now king to f7 here by David Navara, and we have now suddenly reached this position. So okay, let's stop and evaluate the position. Still Magnus has a rook and a knight, and now 2 pawns for the queen. But I think I would love to play more again this position for with the white pieces, because the queen itself cannot attack white's king. The queen cannot create only madness by itself. You have to have support. And now when the pieces are off the board, when the pieces are traded, there's simply no support for the queen. The queen is stuck there. Magnus is already building again the fortress idea. He's playing now rook to d2, and he's trying rook to d4, and again he's trying to play a4, keeping everything good together, because the rook cannot be attacked by any pieces anymore on d4. Here Navara goes of course for this line, queen to a4, hitting both of the pawns. We have rook to d3. Okay, you get your fun, but now first a check. We have rook to d4, the queen has to move, and now finally a4, a beautiful fortress here by Magnus Carlsen. Really wild stuff. In my opinion, again, the only way to make a win here for black is to somehow create a passer here on the h file, but again, you don't have support because the rook has cut off now the 4th rank, and you could never use your king now in the position. You cannot use of course your king in the attack. So black is basically, I think we can agree, hoping for a draw now in this particular position, although you have the queen on the board, but it doesn't have support as we said. So here queen to a3, now g3, queen to a1, king to g2, g5, knight to d2 here by Magnus Carlsen, and now after move g4, knight to e4, and here knight to f6 is the serious threat here by Magnus Carlsen. In the continuation, Navara tried queen to c1, which was maybe his main mistake now in the game. Maybe king to g7 is slightly better, but still, look at this. With knight to c5, knight to b7, you could also lose this pawn. So all of these pawns that black has now in the position are simply weaknesses. So okay, maybe Navara may now a slight inaccuracy, but as I said, I only think that white can win this particular endgame. The queen, as we said, doesn't have simply support. So here knight to e4, as we said, queen to c1. Now Navara lost a very important pawn, the pawn on the h file. Now black is really hoping just for the draw here in this particular position. We have queen to c6, a check. We have now again a new check, king to h2. We have king to g6, knight to f4, attacking the king to f6, and now knight to g2. We have king to g5, and now rook to f4 here by Magnus Carlsen. Magnus is now preparing ideas of e4, e5, maybe to get the rook behind. Rook to e4, maybe then afterwards rook to e3, keeping the rook protected by the pawn on f2, and you just start to push the pawn, and in the later stage of the game maybe the knight cannot come on f4. So this is now the progress. So as I said, e4, e5, rook to e4, rook to e3, knight to f4, and then you just launch the pawn further. So the problem is, again, you don't have perpetuals here for black. Black cannot attack the king many times. You can maybe just play one check, but then you don't have any second check, so it's really only a position where you hope for a draw here from black's perspective. So queen to d1, knight to h4, we have queen to c2, knight to f5, we have queen to d3, and now Magnus goes for e4. So we have queen to d7, Magnus goes e5. Why should we not push the pawn, which is really good. We have queen to h7. Again, as we said, you have one check, but you don't have perpetuals. Okay, you could maybe play even king to g2, but then of course queen to h3 happens. But even that scenario, it doesn't matter. Again, no further checks by black are possible, but Magnus plays now king to g1. We have now queen to g6, knight to d6, and now here queen to e6. This was now the crucial mistake, although it's already a lost game. I think even if you play queen to b1, then king to h2, you can maybe attack now here the knight on d6, but now we just play knight to e4. This would be now the way to go. The king cannot get closer. For instance, you have to now use the queen defensively here in order not to allow here the further progress on e7. Now knight to f6, we can play king to g5, and now look at this, we can grab also this particular pawn. So again, just a lost game here for black. So this is not working. So after move knight to d6, here Navara plays queen to e6, but now rook to f5 is simply winning the game. For instance, if you go king to g6, then you get rook to f6. Again, you lose the queen. So here Navara has to give up now the queen for these two pieces. But this is now completely winning because Magnus has now 3 versus 1 pawns in this particular endgame. Here rook to after this trades of pieces on f5, Magnus goes f4. You have to play, of course, g takes f3 en passant, king to f2. Now Magnus simply grabs the pawn, and in this position, David Navara resigns. So let's see also this particular endgame till the end, because let's see what will happen. You just step back here with the move king to e3, allow your opponent to take the pawn on g3. Now you just go for this pawn, but look at this, just right in time. White can play king to b6. Of course, black would love, of course, to corner the king, go for a drawers line, but it's not working. The king is too far away from the action, and white will promote the queen and will eventually win this beautiful endgame. So incredible game here by Magnus Carlsen, where he intentionally sacrifice the queen for these two pieces just in order to have first a piece activity, realize the possibility of a beautiful fortress, play the beautiful fortress, and never allowed here David Navara to get back into the game. Really beautiful endgame strategy. So consider this fortress idea. Sometimes when you play your own games, you see how the queen is helpless when the queen doesn't have support. Really beautiful tactical game by the world champion Magnus Carlsen. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. I think we have seen beautiful many elements in this particular game. If you want to see more beautiful attacking games like this, check out my commented chess games play here, play the best chess games of all times. And if you want to see maybe the best engine games, which are really even wilder, check out my commented chess games play by computer series. Here's also the link. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. What to say? Chess is the best, of course.